My fellow Americans.
Take the red pill.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
The disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed.
There is nothing the political establishment will not do.
And this nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action.
These criminals cannot be rewarded.
So that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction.
There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
They're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way. Here I am.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
The cost of freedom is always high.
Those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
This is a crusade! This is a holy war against the deep state!
We never wanted to be right, but yet things are all adding up to the firestorm.
My people of this country and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags.
I ain't never gonna pretend that I give a damn. Anybody who's offended, come get it, we throwing hands. Anybody not trying to make America great again, you a punk, you a clown, better know where I stand. I'm the white boy with the middle fingers in the air, dog.
We don't give a what.
100 white boys gonna hold me down anywhere, dog.
We think that you suck.
My patriots the craziest, they ain't afraid of breaking fists on faces. If you really wanna taste of this, no safety tip, just aim the stick and spray the clip. I pray you miss, cause if you don't, they gon' go wacko. Automatic gun smoke like tobacco. Never hit a lady, but it's pretty hard to tell if you're a girl or a they, them, there's these, that, those. I ain't never gonna take a knee for the anthem, smack them. I don't give a damn, can't stand them. Gang full of randoms, fan with a handgun, run up in your mansion, leave it all abandoned. I was raised to be brave, to the grave, United States. We love the country that they've been corrupting, go woke and go broker if you ain't awake.
My people of this country and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American
Got that
flags.
AKA all Draco, leave you stankin', break your ankles. I'm not hearing what you saying, hit the pavement, now you seeing angels. It get dangerous, go against the Patriots, got all the bangers. Take a look inside my closet, you gon' see way more than hangers. Hammers like I do construction, ammo, I'ma shoot at something. Why you think we own these guns so we could just go do some hunting? You must not pay close attention, government they want division. Only treason if you lose, I guarantee we come out winning. Let my flag fly high like eagles, I would die for all my people. You can't change me with procedures, I'm about freedom, you about evil. Leave you hanging from the ceiling like chandeliers in cathedrals. Never have the safety on, and when we run out we just reload.
My people of this country and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. Every time we pull up, you see stars, you see stripes, you see flags on the cars and the trucks and the bikes. Every time we pull up, we go hard, we outside, we got flags on our arms that are tatted there for life.
Every time we pull up, we don't care if you mad. We cherish this land, the haters can't get buried in rags. They set fire to old glory, turning fabric to ash.
But every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. Live with you Monday through Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is where we bring you the unfolding global conspiracy, and a fucking conspiracy it is. I hope everybody is doing well out there. And yesterday we were just talking about this, the firestorm. We're talking about all the aspects of the firestorm to come in. We're talking about global war, attacks on infrastructure, supply chain. We talked about economic collapse and the signs of economic collapse. And what happens today? What happened? Dow closes nearly 500 points lower today. Now investors are all talking about the big old R word. I mentioned it yesterday. I said, you remember when they changed the definition of recession in Joe Biden's first year and a half? And I said, then no mention of it. No mention at all whatsoever. And I said, we're actually way past the recession. We're in a depression, heading towards a Great Depression. Then today, now investors are all talking about, are we in a recession? Now, what is really going on with the stock market? Well, see, the stock market, like many other things within our society, are nothing more than manipulated entities, completely controlled by the U.S. federal government, by the large financial institutions, and by the Federal Reserve. And see, it's very easy to produce a stock market crash whenever they want. Now, this could be what they call the rebalancing, right? Is that every year you have to have kind of a rebalancing of the markets. And no, this is not a rebalancing. This is a clear indication that they will utilize economic warfare against you and me when they want. And they could do it tomorrow. They could do it next week. Now, why would they utilize economic warfare? Well, we got to remember something here. There is something I haven't said in a long time in the sense of this ideal of what they're working for in their agenda. They want you sick, hungry. They want you homeless. They want you defenseless. They want you penniless and jobless. They want you begging the government for help and assistance. They want you disempowered. In order to achieve that, because that is the perspective of the Great Reset. The Great Reset, as envisioned by the Marxists, only occurs when the global community is on their knees begging and suffering. The only way that they could ever have a chance to usher in a new world order, a one world government, is with the whole system that was already established crashing down to the ground, and all the people involved in that system suffering greatly. See, they don't want to implement the new world order by force. They don't want to have all of this stuff unfold and looks like they set it all up. They want you to beg for it. They want the American people, they want the European people, the Asian people to beg for the new world order. That's how sadistic these people truly are. And so what we saw today with the stock market is a clear indication of the come. What we saw was their ability to deter the markets at will, to drop the Dow 500 points in a day. Now, interesting enough, I've talked about cryptocurrency, and I know a lot of people talk about how cryptocurrency is the hedge towards the stock markets. But what happened to cryptocurrency today? They went down as well. Now, that's going to happen originally when we have these stock market crashes, but afterwards will rebound. Now, to note, in order to implement their vision of a new world order, the current economic dynamic, stock market, etc., it has to be destroyed. It has to be pushed away. See, the stock market, Wall Street, has been talking about moving towards tokenization for a long time. Tokenization of assets. What does that mean? Well, basically you digitize all of the various different assets, and then you have a better methodology of tracking, trading, and exchanging. But they've been slacking on this. Citadel and BlackRock have announced that they are partnering up with another company to create their own stock market, national stock market, in Texas. that is going to be completely tokenized. Now you got to remember, BlackRock and Citadel own the majority of every company traded on Wall Street. So why is it all of a sudden they're going to start their own? Because this one is going away. Because this one is going to crash and burn. And they will utilize it at a time of great vulnerability. Now, what's interesting about that word is I've said for a long time, as the firestorm begins to approach and we get more and more and more towards that time when everything is coming to a precipice, when everything is coming to an apex, the chaos gets seemingly out of control to where it cannot be controlled by any government, any nation state, any elitist or globalist. And it is at that point that we become incredibly vulnerable and they become incredibly vulnerable. And so it's at their weakest point that this chaos will be unleashed. Why? Well, if you knew that during a point of extreme chaos, you become highly vulnerable for destruction, for attack, for takeover, what do you have to do? You have to have large forces of ammunition ready and waiting to go off at that point in time. And that's what they have. The economy will be one of them. On the other side of the house, we are moving into the aspect of global war, and this is an incredibly scary time for a lot of people. We talk about it a lot here in the sense of civil war, and it's kind of like that video, American Flags, by Tom MacDonald and Adam Calhoun, which you can find on Tom MacDonald's YouTube page. Really easy to find out there, and I recommend you go subscribe and support them. Nobody wants war. War is not a pretty thing. War is not one of those things that anybody strives for, whether it's a global war, whether it's civil war here within our own country. Nobody wants armed conflict. It reminds me back to the great poem of the men who wanted to be left alone. Nobody wants it. But if they keep on pressing those buttons, if they keep on making the moves that they're making, they're damn well going to get it. And it's going to be an incredibly chaotic time for our country. Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, is in hiding in Venezuela after being threatened with arrest, called for protests in every city in Venezuela on Saturday to denounce the disputed re-election of President Nicolas Maduro. Now, this is interesting, okay? Because Venezuela is kind of going down that same route that they had in 2010 when this Marxist revolution happened there, the color revolution, which allowed Maduro to take over. But there's a few things to point out that are wrong about what's happening with Venezuela, at least in the public perspective. And I even said this last night without really thinking about it. And it has everything to do with what's happening globally. See, the opposition leader, it appeared, had won the election early on. Then at the middle of the night, you see Maduro skyrocket up, win the election. And people are saying that he didn't win the election. But see, the problem is that Western nations are supporting the opposition leader. Western nations are saying that Maduro lost and telling him to step down. The day after the Venezuela election, Maduro says that they're joining BRICS. You got to wonder what just happened there. I don't know whether the Venezuelan people love Maduro or hate Maduro or how life is in Venezuela. But it seems to me that this appeared to be another United States coup attempt. There was a video circulating yesterday of Maduro giving comments on what was happening in Venezuela and the United States asking him to step down. And he started talking about how no country who utilizes their own intelligence agency to topple governments in Central, South America, Southeast Asia for 5 decades, who kills one of their own presidents, JFK, and then tries to kill another, should tell me how to run my country. Maduro's got a really good point there. And see, here's the thing. Did we just watch another failed coup attempt? Did we just watch another failed coup attempt, which Nicolas Maduro's regime realized, went in there, stopped it from happening in the sense of stole the election back, and now that the civil war uprising that's occurring right there is another intelligence operation? I think that is most likely the scenario that we're seeing evolve here in Venezuela. But the idea is that it was another Western intelligence agency failure, just like the one with Donald Trump's assassination attempt. We're learning now. And by the way, all of these things are small little pieces, pearl strung together, leading towards what's fucking gonna happen. Whistleblower has revealed to Senator Josh Hawley that Acting Secret Service Director Rowe personally directed the cuts to the U.S. Secret Service agents responsible for threat assessment while deputy director. And now he's been promoted. The whistleblower had told Hawley that none of these threat assessment agents were present in Butler when Trump was shot, and many of them have been sounding the alarm about problems for months. So he orders the cuts to these threat assessment officers. They're saying that there's extreme caution out there. The FBI at the same time is saying that there is imminent threats of assassination and terrorist attempts in the United States. And these people just act like everything's normal. The lead Secret Service agent in Butler called off security from building roofs before the sniper shot President Trump. And she is still deciding security and advanced teams at rallies. Crooks wasn't lying prone on a sloped roof. He was moving all around. He was flying a drone. He was raising all the different types of red flags with law enforcement. He was dancing on the rooftop. Now we have video of him. I mean, come on, right before he pulls the trigger. But what we found is that, actually, you know what? I got a little bit of video. Let's watch the video with Jesse Waters. This will be good. We'll only watch some of it. It's a little bit long. Oh, I gotta turn it on. Dun-dun-dun.
Fox News alert. The family of Trump's shooter, Thomas Crooks, has been underground since Butler, but Fox Digital just caught up with the dad. Watch.
Mr. Crooks, was there anything that might have made you aware of what your son was up to?
Mr. Crooks, can you explain why your son has such a limited social circle?
Is there any statement you'd be willing to share with us right now, Mr. Crooks?
I gotta pee.
Your son tried to murder the president, and you've got to pee. Something's going on in that house. Meanwhile, we have brand new footage from the moments right before Trump was nearly assassinated. You can see Crooks running across the roof of that AGR building. The video was actually recorded by James Copenhaver, who was critically injured after Crooks shot him twice. That's just the view from the ground. Secret Service agents were stationed on their own rooftops. They would have even had a better angle to spot the shooter. But during yesterday's hearing, the acting Secret Service director said there was no way his team could have seen him.
This is what our counter sniper team saw. Shooter, no elbows. You barely make out the crown of his head. Below it, the assailant up prone. And let me just tell you, our counter sniper, this individual, I know him. I consider him a friend.
Okay, so he's your friend? Great. Crooks wasn't lying prone on a sloped roof. He was moving all around. He was flying a drone. He was raising all red flags with law enforcement. He was dancing on the rooftop. And now we have video of him, I mean, come on, right before he pulls the trigger? It's been 18 days since Trump was nearly killed on live TV, and we still don't have answers. What was his motive? How did he build 3 explosive devices in his parents' house without anybody knowing? What was he doing with encrypted foreign apps? And who signed off on the plans that left the building outside the perimeter?
Who was the lead site agent who made the decision to leave the AGR building completely outside of the security perimeter? Who was that?
Senator, I cannot give you that name. This person is operational. They're still doing investigations. They're still doing protective visits.
Have they been relieved of duty?
Senator, they have not been relieved of duty.
I know their name, by the way. Why have they not been relieved of duty?
They are still cooperating, not only being interviewed by the FBI, but also by our Office of Professional Responsibility.
The Secret Service says they can't tell us who was in charge because the person's investigating went wrong. Really? According to Senator Josh Hawley, it's a female supervisor. We don't know her name yet. We don't know her qualifications. We don't even care if she's female. Back in April, the Secret Service was blasted in a petition from active duty agents for caring more about diversity than adequate training, saying it's a double standard that posed a threat to national security.
So, two different things. Number one, the sniper. And number two, this on-scene investigator, or this on-scene person who has the security assessment. They both failed at their job. You know, Jesse Waters showed a video here. It's a really interesting video. Now, I don't know if anybody has been following John Colin and the work that he's been doing on this. But if you watch the video, something interesting happens. And I'm going to play this for you one more time because the news, mainstream media, isn't playing this fully as the way you should see it. Check this out.
What you know about rolling down?
See a shadowy figure that appears to be moving on the roof across from the stage where former President Donald Trump was speaking back on July 13th. We know from the FBI, would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks traversed on roofs that were about 150 yards away from the rally stage. So perhaps this is Crooks who was captured in this video. In the meantime, though, we know there were communication failures.
Did you see him die? What? What's he talking about here?
Would-be assassin Thomas Matthew
Boom.
Crooks. Would-be assassin Thomas Matthew.
See how he goes down with massive force?
Assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks.
What you know about rolling down? When your brain goes numb, you can call a metal freeze when this.
Okay, so what did we just see there? So Mike Adams has been doing a lot of investigation on this and kind of looking at different aspects of, number one, why was Crooks's rifle so far away from him, right? If he was lying in the prone position, shooting, then why was his rifle so far away from him? You don't believe me? Here's the photo of Crooks. His rifle is almost 6 to 7 feet away from him. That doesn't make any sense. If he's lying in the prone position and a sniper did a clean shot through the eye, which they say, why is his rifle over here? Because what you just saw in that video was Crooks running across the roof being shot in the head before the first shots were fired. Now, this brings a few things to the table. It appears Crooks was shot and killed before the Trump's attempted assassination, which would mean there's more than one shooter. There was a more extensive operation than thought. A sniper would have had to have used a silencer. This is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting. By the way, this pick isn't altered. I don't know. Maybe you're talking about other picks, but this pick is not altered. Let's assume that a deep state operation took place to take out Donald Trump. Okay. They send 2 Antifa guys and this Crooks kid as patsies. Mind you, all 3 are patsies. Because you're not going to send 3 nitwits that you don't know, that you never trained, to go take out the one target that you want gone. You're going to send in a real assassin. You're going to send in one dude that you know is not going to miss. And you're going to give him different instructions. So, what do we have here? If that was Crooks, a video of Crooks being shot, running across the roof, or somebody being shot or running across the roof, this means that the person who shot him had a silencer. All right? The person who shot him had a silencer. That's a professional. Number two, they would have pulled the bullet out of Crooks' head and matched the rifling and caliber to the Secret Service sniper's rifle. They would have to have. They would have to cover that one small specific detail. Because if they had taken Trump out and Crooks was the patsy and he was dead on a roof, they would need that one small detail to be legitimate, which means whoever was shooting a sniper rifle with the silencer would have had to have known the type of ammunition used by the Secret Service, the same caliber and the same rifle. They would have had to have mimicked the same rifling inside of the sniper rifle used by the Secret Service, because that bullet that's pulled out of Crooks' head would have to have had appeared and looked exactly the same as it came out of that one sniper's rifle. Now, obviously, autopsies can, it fragmented, it's destroyed, all this stuff, who knows? But they would have want to have gotten those details right. So, if the sniper with the silencer who just shot Crooks on the roof, before the actual attack happened, they would have had to have had inside information. They would have to have had known that the Secret Service sniper had a 300 Win Mag. They would have known the type of ammunition he was using. They would have had to have known those fine details, which only the Secret Service knows those of that day. Only that sniper knows those of that day. So it is a massive inside job. If this is truthful, which I believe that video we just saw, you watch the force that person goes back, they were shot on the roof. Makes you wonder if Roe is involved in this. He just said that the sniper is his friend. I don't know. I don't think Secret Service snipers use silencers. But I have a feeling that this is going to go down one of the largest failed intelligence operations in American history. They just tried to recreate JFK, and they failed worse than they did in JFK. When Donald Trump gets back in the office, people are going to pay massively for what just happened. But see, that's the thing. They're not going to let Donald Trump get back in the office. We got to come to this acceptance. We're hearing now that there's more assassination attempts that are potentially going to come. That there's potential terrorist attacks. So I'm going to skip ahead here. We got a guest coming on here in a little bit. We will jump over to her once she comes in. Tim Poole says Kamala Harris is going to win 49 states in a landslide because they're going to steal all over again. Joe Biden finally showed his face to the world, and then says he was asked about the hostage release, and they said that Donald Trump says he could have had those hostages released almost immediately. And then Biden says, then why didn't he do it when he was in office? Because they weren't hostages when he was in office there, Biden. So Ismail Haniyeh, who is the top Hamas leader, was assassinated on Wednesday by an explosive device covertly smuggled into the Tehran guest house where he was staying. He was killed inside Iran in Tehran. A bomb smuggled into the guest house was smuggled in there months ago. Now, Israel's assassination of Hamas's top guy, of Hezbollah and Hamas's top guy, they did, Hezbollah's guy was killed a few hours earlier in the bombing in Beirut, is going to lead to a complete conflict in the Middle East. We are headed to war. Right now, 12 U.S. warships are sailing full steam on their way to the Middle East. You got to remember, when this first happened a few months ago, it was only a few different naval vessels, 3 different naval vessels. Now you got 12 U.S. naval vessels, including guided missile destroyers and cruisers, which this means that we're most likely going to war. It's about the same number of ships that we sent to Afghanistan and Iraq after September 11th. We saw rocket sirens sounding in Israel today as a barrage of Hezbollah rockets landed in northern Israel. This was the weekend, the Iron Dome, before the big attack. Now, Israel ministers were handed emergency satellite phones earlier today, which is kind of not strange, but it's just because they have a fear that communications could go down with a preemptive cyber attack. Iran has came out and claimed that they're going to hit various different targets in Israel within the next few days. Now, Pentagon officials are saying that Iran and its allies will launch a large-scale attack on Israel in the next 72 hours. I'm saying right here, August 4th. August 4th, 2024 is when Iran will launch the counterstrike on Israel. I could be wrong, but the moon aligns. The Iranian army commander: if the United States intervenes this time, we will target all of its military bases and interests in the region. Interest means U.S. naval assets, U.S. troop deployment, so forth, which will lead to ultimate wide-scale war. Whenever it happens, Israel is going to retaliate. If Iran strategically strikes Israel, they're going to. This isn't going to be just like when you had President Raisi over in Iran before he was assassinated and couped by his own people. This isn't going to be like when he was in power and they're going to call the United States and Israel and be like, okay, we're going to shoot some missiles over here and over here. Iran is going to retaliate, and they're going to retaliate hard. And when they do, we're probably going to break out in an all-out war. I'm curious, though, to what this young lady has to say about all that.
I wasn't prepared. It's crazy. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Hi. Good, Tammy. How are you?
Good. I heard you went camping. I heard the Red Pilled group went camping.
Good time. It was a real good time. We went out to Missouri, one of our Social Red Pill members' property out there, forest,
Nice.
The forest property, and it was a good time. It started to rain the last 2 days, torrential downpour, so we got out of there early, but it was still a really good time.
Good. Well, I'm glad everybody's getting out and connecting to nature, because I swear they don't want us to connect to nature. We're dealing with wildfires here in northern Colorado, all across the Front Range. So that's pretty interesting. I've been looking at the map.
We have wildfires in Canada, too.
Yes. If you look at the map, there's an app that I downloaded to kind of track all the different wildfires. It's just amazing that it's just all concentrated in North America.
Oh, go figure.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And so we've been talking about this a little bit on my show this week, of course, because we're like right down the street from it, basically in Loveland is where the fires are, and we're in Johnstown, right? So real close. And I can't help but think, it's always the mountain properties, always this prime real estate. And I was getting some Maui vibes here with all of this going on. I don't know. I've always been told that Colorado is going to be kind of a hub eventually for the New World Order, for the globalists, because of just the different assets we have here in Colorado geographically, but also some of the main businesses. We've got kind of a little faux Silicon Valley going in Boulder, right? We've got all these components that these types of globalists love. And so it's making me think, these fires are just popping up all over. They're skipping towns, skipping little, rinky-dink towns like Meade, but jumping over to Lyons. So we've got a fire in Loveland. We've got a fire in Lyons. We've got a fire in Morrison. These are all like the really nice areas to live, right?
Well, August is typically a hot month, and it's interesting because, you're talking about how this would be the globalist front. And by the way, I do want to get your comments on the Middle East. We'll go into that in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
But but as per what you're talking about here, if anybody hasn't figured it out, Denver, Colorado is a very, very unique city in the United States of America. The reason why NORAD's command center was chosen to be in Colorado Springs is very specific. Number one is your western side is covered by a range of mountains all the way down from the southern border all the way up past Canada, the Rocky Mountains. Number two is Denver is located 400 miles away from any other major city. So you're 400 miles away from any major city. And in between that, it's flat land where you can see your enemies coming. It is the one city, I'd say, in the world that is kind of like unattackable. It's in the center of the country, so it's almost impossible to nuke that city. And if a invading force ever tried to come in, they would be stopped by the mountains or they'd be annihilated before they ever got to the city because it's all flat land on the way up with not very many resources. So it's definitely one of the hubs of the globalists. That's why we have all the symbology occurring at the Denver International Airport, which I worked at the Denver International Airport for 7 years.
And did you ever see it? I think
do
remember you mentioning that before.
Yeah, we went. So we when I got there, I asked about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been looking for the doors and everything like that to the underground military base." And I had a SITA badge. So everybody who works in the airport has a SITA badge, and SITA badge gives you different levels of access. Since I was in IT, I had full level access to everything but the tarmac area. So I can go into every building. My SITA badge opened every building, almost every door. I did not find any door or entrance to anywhere that was suspicious or weird. There's no military activity. There's nothing strange or odd going on there. But there is one thing, and it was the way that the commercial HVAC systems were set up. So you have tunnels that go underneath the concourses at DIA. So you have A, B, and C concourse, and you have a tunneling system that goes underneath that and the main terminal, and they're all interconnected. And the tunnels are nothing crazy. It's just an underground baggage claim, so they don't have to go on top side. They have massive commercial HVAC systems inside there. Those are in a subfloor 30 feet below the tunnels.
Oh.
And I said, this is odd. And they're all gated off. They're locked. You have to like unlock the thing to get to the ladder. And other than that, there's no way down because it's like a rail. And then there's like a ladder that is partitioned up and it's lock and bolted. And in order to get down the 30 feet, you have to have the key to put the ladder down to go down the 30 feet. If not, it's just a straight fall downward. And the HVAC. And then if you look at the HVAC systems, the venting is in the floor. Almost as if it's going downward. And so then I also had access to the B concourse blueprints and designs of the original DIA airport. And there were some problems there. Number one, it was $1.2 billion over budget.
Oh
and I don't
my
think this was
God.
by accident.
What's a 1.2 bill?
I know. What's 1.2 billion? But so what happened is they installed this railway system that was supposed to automatically track the bags back to the main concourse. So they just throw a bag onto a train and the train just automatically takes it there. And it's a robotic system. They didn't have to do anything. Well, it never worked. But when you look at this rail system, there's nothing fancy about it. Apparently that cost $1 billion. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
What does make sense is when you start to realize the real secret of what they're hiding there. And that is that there was Martin Marietta was highly critical in the development of it. And it was their underground surveillance and development team. Martin Marietta, Lockheed Martin Marietta, same company, subdivision of them, as well as a few other companies. But this is the key. What is right next to the Denver International Airport? Denver International Airport sits on 54 square miles. Right next to Denver International Airport is Aurora, Colorado. Aurora, Colorado hosts a military base. A U.S. Air Force base.
That's right.
I'm going to forget the name of it now.
Buckley?
Buckley, thank you. Buckley Air Force Base. Right next to Buckley is Raytheon and Lockheed. There is a missile. There's parts of the missile defense shield. If you go by, you're going to see these big golf ball domes. That is part of the nuclear weapons defense system in the sense of detection and critical ranging. So the U.S. Air Force has a very highly strategic base right there. Now, this is the interesting part. DIA used to be in Stapleton, right by Denver. And housing developments were allowed to build up next to it, and people used to complain all the time. So they just decided to leave Stapleton, which had $100 million, $200 million overhaul, which is a perfectly fine airport, and go to the middle of nowhere and annex this 54 square miles for the Denver International Airport, which is a 3 or 4 year project to develop it.
Yeah.
At the same time that the Denver International Airport began construction, Buckley Air Force Base went from an active military base to a reserve base with limited personnel and limited traffic.
Oh.
In 1992, when Denver International Airport opened, Buckley returned to full active status and left its reserve status.
Why? I did not know that.
Oh, I did. This is a big rabbit hole that I've gone into before. The reason being is during World War II, and Buckley is a World War II military base, all of our military bases were outfitted with underground bunkers and tunnels.
Oh, they didn't need it anymore.
So, Buckley Air Force Base is not only outfitted with this, but it's also Stratcom's backup headquarters. So in the advent of a national nuclear event, a fallout, these types of things, they don't go to NORAD. They go to these tunnel systems underneath various different military bases.
Okay.
What they did is they expanded the underground military base under Buckley. So they expanded it under DIA. They utilized DIA.
They connect?
Cover it up. So underneath DNA, you're talking miles underneath DNA. There's an underground military base that extended from Buckley. They covered up the construction by building DIA on top. They utilized the $1.2 billion funding to help facilitate that. Now, yes, there is an underground military base underneath DIA, but the access to it is in Buckley, on Buckley Air Force Base.
Whoa.
And you're never going to get access to it through DIA.
Got it. Wow. I had not heard that theory. I had not heard that one. That's crazy. That is
People
crazy.
don't like it when I tell this story. People are like, no. There's like elevators that go down at the airport and they lead to 9-foot urinals where aliens pee. Like, I met a kid in the airport at the smoking lounge that was like only at the airport looking for like the underground military base. And he's like, I heard there's like 9-foot toilets that aliens pee in. I'm going to go find them. And he was trying to like get into the elevators with all this. Like, I'm like, no, dude, there's not. He's like, there's a Marine that stands sentry down here. No, there's not. Why would they do that when 5 miles away, there's a Air Force base that they could just make a little tunnel in?
Well, that makes sense because there's been
at,
lots of, and all the symbology. I mean, during COVID, they really like went quick to cover those murals up because those murals were crazy, right? They had all of the kids with their masks on, with the different countries' emblems on the mask, like the gas mask, and then they covered it all up. And it's quite an interesting marketing technique they're using right now, right there, because it's going through another overhaul, which again, this thing was just built. Like it's been under construction the entire time, I think, since the first time I went there. There's been some kind of project outside DIA or inside DIA going on this entire time. Like it was since like 95, since I moved here. And they're doing yet another renovation there. And what they've done is they've actually turned the conspiracy theory about DIA into a marketing thing. So they excuse our dust while we reconstruct, where we are hiding the reptiles in the basement or what, you know what I mean? They're like making fun of the conspiracy theory. And I thought, well, that's pretty brilliant, really, because, you know, it's just gaslighting. There's something going on there. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying about there. I believe in the alien urinals you're talking about, but I am saying that these entities that we're dealing with, the government and all of the different 3-letter agencies, nothing's off the table.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, this is the Great Reset.
Yeah. Once you start lying, then everything you do is put up for question. Right? I mean,
Did you know that the horse in the front?
Yes.
You know the horse that's in the front, the big, I forgot his name. It was it's got like a demonic name, but there's a big blue horse at DIA and it's got red eyes. Did you know that the guy who sculpted it fell on him and killed him?
I did know that. I did hear that story. Yes.
And his son wouldn't finish it. His son wouldn't touch it.
I didn't hear that part of it. Yeah. There's all kinds of creepy things going on there at DIA, that's for sure. But that's what we're dealing with. Fires over here, and I expect to hear more stuff coming out of Colorado because there's like a new fire every other day. And it's strange because the mainstream media is barely covering it. They've had a couple of updates on it. It's still like only 1% contained. Last I checked, it was it's like 6,000 acres in the Loveland one. I'm not sure how big the Lions one is, but
has it hit residential areas yet?
They've evacuated. Mm-hmm. They've evacuated several different places. Yeah. So
we're moving into that point of chaos.
Oh, dude. I'm doing a new segment on my show at the top of the show. I'm doing a segment that I'm calling Mass Formation Psychosis Breakdown, because there's a new distraction every day. Every day there's a new distraction. And so I'm just trying to piece it down for people, because it seems like every new thing is causing more division. Right? So if it's just absolutely, I don't even have words for Kamala's rollout, right? This absolute, 180 they've done on Kamala, where I think everybody agreed 6 months ago she was the worst vice president we've ever had, right? Left was saying that. No, but nobody likes her. She's word salad. Now all of a sudden, with the onset of the celebrity push, all of a sudden Kamala's their girl. Right? It's just fascinating. And then we have this whole stuff going on with the Olympics, which is another source of division, where, even conservative people that lean conservative, but maybe aren't religious, they're now starting to divide, right? Because they don't see the connotation of the Satan worship. So they are saying, oh, it's art and it doesn't really matter, and religion. And then the other side of the conservatives that are more Christian based are like, what do you, this is total. To me, it's so obvious, at this point, that this is a ritual. The Olympics has been a ritual. It was a ritual, and they apologized for it afterwards. Well, they're going to apologize afterwards because they're trying to do damage control. But the point is the ritual was completed. It was completed. So they don't really care now. I mean, they got to do what they got to do, which was a mass ritual where millions of people were watching, and they got to worship their deity in front of everybody. Right? Which is a Baphomet. The Baphomet is their deity. This is why the transgender push, this is, and then more division between, the religions. I mean, it's just, we're in a crazy, crazy time. I try to bring a little bit of reason to it, and bring people into the center so we can unite on things. Like, we can all agree, I think that, this display at the Olympics was inappropriate. We don't have to maybe dissect it on every level if you don't buy into the satanic ritual stuff. I do. I mean, once you know that stuff, you can't not see it. Right? It's everywhere. You start to see it everywhere. And So, but we can unite on the fact, maybe it's, you would think we'd be able to unite on that kind of thing.
I think it was a little bit more than inappropriate.
Yes.
I think that you had the Last Supper recreated with a bunch of trans and gay people, which, hey, I have no problem with gay people or trans people, but it was sending a message. So we are entering the new age, a new age. So a new God has to be presented in the kind of processional cycle. And what they were showing was this birth and creation of their God. Now, you had Dionysus, so the blue guy in the center and everything like that, the fat, chubby blue guy. Yeah. This was really representative of Dionysus. So you have all of these kind of old Athenian wine cults that worship Dionysus, which there is some very, very occult sects that are out there, that are out there right now. And they are the worship of these ancient Roman and Greek gods. Now, and what's interesting about that is
fascinating that more people are talking about it. More people are talking about the occult than they ever have. So you're seeing more mainstream people, like even Candace Owens is breaking down the occult now. And that was my point with bringing it up on my show, was that, hey, listen, you're going to start to see it more and more. You are going to start to see like more people. It's not going to be just you and I, these crazy podcasters, Josh, that are talking about how these cults actually worship Satan. Or worship Saturn, and they worship Satan. You're not going to just, you're going to start hearing more people talk about this stuff now, which is good, but also prepare for it, right? Because some people aren't going to be able to handle it. But normal people don't have a concept of evil. They don't really. Most normal people have a concept of the level of evil that we're dealing with. So many people are saying this is spiritual warfare. This is spiritual warfare, right? Like Tucker Carlson even said, this is spiritual warfare. Candace Owens, these types of more mainstream people are saying this now. But what does that mean? What does that mean? To them, I'm not even sure if they know what it means yet. Candace is starting to understand it. I think Tucker understands it a little bit, but more people that are just throwing that out there, that this is a spiritual war, they don't really understand the history of the occult like you do, right? They don't have that deep understanding that this is real evil. We are in a spiritual battle at the biblical level. That is what we're dealing with. And so that's coming. I find it interesting that it's coming up now. You mentioned the Middle East. I talked about Aleister Crowley on my show this week. I talked about Albert Pike, right? These people are key people in the occult movement. And when you go back and you study what they talked about, you can see it coming into fruition. Like Albert Pike was talking about the third war is supposed to be against Israel and the Muslims, right? It's between Jews and Muslims. Look at where we're at. It's all kind of lining up.
It is. And, it's lining up because it's the occult that rule and dominate the world. That when we get to that multi-headed hydra, all those different factions, when I say ideology, these are cults, and they all worship some type of occult practice. Some of them evil, some of them not evil. And I think one of the biggest mistakes is that people tend to label it all evil. If it's not what they believe, it's evil. If it's not what they believe, it's Satan, it's the devil. And that stuff, that nonsense has got to go. But it's becoming more and more prevalent in society. And this is why people are becoming aware of it, because it is leaking out of the shadows. It is coming out of the darkness.
Yes.
And this is what happens, the revelation that occurs during this time frame that we're in right now. And this is why we're in the Great Reset. The show is called The Great Reset. The reason we're in the Great Reset is because this happens cyclically every 72 to 90 years. 72 years is 1 degree of movement within the precessional cycle. The precessional cycle goes through one epoch of that. That's 3,160 years. That is one precessional cycle. In that precessional cycle, the 3,160 years, you have a mass cycle a great cycle that occurs in that time. It's called the Great Calendar for a reason. So this great reset that's going through right now, this fourth turning that we're going through right now, is like what I call the resetting of the clocks. So the Mayan calendar, you remember the whole stuff about the Mayan calendar 2012?
Yeah.
So many people don't understand what the Mayan calendar actually took, what it did. Is it measured small, minute cycles that occur on the Earth. It measured the Earth and the sun cycles. It measured our solar system cycles and another star system that I guess the Mayans believed that our star system was connected to, a cyclone, protocyclone. And then it also measured the galactic cycles and then higher cycles above that. But the thing is the 2012 year, all of those cycles from the micro to the large to the cosmological all reset at the same time.
Wow.
That is why that was so important, because it was the resetting of when all of those cycles moving on their own, all of a sudden align, bling, at the same time. We actually haven't had that point in time. I think actually we did. I think it was a great conjunction. It's been in the last few years is when we're in that time. But right now we are in a grand cycle of consciousness, what I believe is a grand cycle of consciousness, and that we are developing kind of like, if we look at it in the sense of conscious expression, you have archetypes, is that there is a convergence of archetypes that is happening here, a growth, an evolution of archetypes. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to mold that. They're trying to implement their own will upon this cycle. They understand what is occurring in this cycle. It's an evolutionary of consciousness cycle. And they are trying to form and move it towards where they want it to go. The problem with what they're doing is that it's unnatural, which is a violation of natural law. What they are doing is downright evil. They are manipulating people for their own benefit. And unfortunately for them, and fortunately for us, natural order will have no way of it. Natural order, you can look like the will of God. The will of God is going to strike back at these people, and they are going to lose bigly. Now, I'm not going to rule out any other aspect of intervention in the sense of extraterrestrial, interdimensional, crypto-terrestrial. I don't know. I think that is a 98% possibility that stuff is going to have an effect on all of this. But what we are seeing right now is the evil is lurking in the shadows and is finally being pushed out into the light. And people are finally seeing what has been going on for thousands of years on this planet. And it's hard to understand unless you have some, good generalization of religion and philosophy and metaphysics and spirituality. And even most of those people who haven't spent their whole life, researching the esoteric and the occult, they have a hard time explaining and understanding what is really happening. What we are going through is a transition that makes us incredibly vulnerable. And people are trying to hijack that and influence it to their own will to control us and to enslave us once again, like what happened probably 3,160 years ago. The problem is things are different now. We are in the midst of the information war. The Great Reset is not going to go the way that these people wished it or want it to go. It's going to go a completely opposite direction.
It's going to wake everybody up.
It has.
I mean, there's no denying that. I think, are there really still people out there that have no clue what's going on? Yeah. But I think that population is getting smaller and smaller by the day as the more absurd comes forth. I was sitting in a hairdressing salon this weekend, and my hairdresser, love her, but she doesn't pay attention to any of this stuff. She's just doing her thing. She doesn't pay attention. But the Olympic ceremony came up. And I said, "Did you see it?" And she said, "No, I didn't even see it. I don't know. What are you talking about?" And so she picks up her phone and she starts looking on her TikTok, and it's on, so I can hear it and I can see it. And I started seeing her algorithm. There wasn't one negative thing about the Olympic ceremony on her phone. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating. Look at my feed. And I went on my Twitter, and then I began to exchange what I saw with what she saw. It was two different paradigms. We're already living in two different virtual realities. They've created it based on the algorithm that's curated for you, right? But if you had picked up her phone and looked at it, you would not be able to find one negative thing about the ceremony. And that just blew my mind because clearly it was a satanic ritual. And there were so many things that we could sit here and go through every little thing, to the black and white checkered floor that the dancers were dancing on. I mean, it was just everywhere, right? That's all symbols. It's all
The
rituals.
imitation of dying from COVID. Did you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Were they all
Yes.
dying? Yeah.
Yeah, and the just the music and the song in French, if you translate it, I mean, it's just eerie stuff. Not to mention the worship of the deity of the Baphomet with the transgender. The Baphomet is transgender, or it has both genders, right? And they're having men with beards dressed as women, portraying women, right? And it goes even further into the actual games themselves. This is how deep it's gotten into our culture now, because so many people tolerated it out of fear of being, confronted and called a homophobe. But I said that today on my show, was that, this whole transgender thing didn't start in the Olympics of 2024, because my entire feed today on Twitter was all about the boxing match between the transgender and the woman, and she lost, obviously, because she took a punch to the face and tapped out basically in 46 seconds, which I don't blame her. But so this was yeah, it was a big discussion. It was all over Twitter, and I said, you know what, this is I agree with your outrage, but you're too late. This stuff started happening in our schools years ago, and people didn't want to stand up. They didn't want to say anything about it because they didn't want to take the heat for it, right? They didn't want to be called a homophobe. Somebody else will stand up. We got to stop waiting for somebody else to stand up. We have to stand up ourselves, because our voices are much bigger than we actually believe that they are. We're all part of a network. If one person will say, you know what, I'm not okay with this, my kid's not going to partake in this event, imagine. Do you think we'd be looking at the Olympics today like we're looking at it? If in the community years ago, parents said, no, we're not going to partake in this, we're not going to tolerate it, it wouldn't have escalated to this level. No. And so let that be a lesson to us. It's a real-time lesson. I tweeted out, like, listen, all female athletes, the ball's in your court. This is your moment in history. You should stand with this woman, and every single one of these women athletes should pull out of the Olympics, refuse, even if they don't have a transgender opponent, they should be backing her and saying, I'm not going to partake in my event unless we get these transgenders out of women's sports.
Well, you saw the volleyball player, right?
Yes. 17-year-old volleyball player? Are you talking about that?
So the 17-year-old volleyball player who is now paralyzed because a transgender person spiked the ball and right directly into her face.
Right into her face. But this is part of the spiritual warfare, manipulating you and trying to get you to accept the evil of this. It is. I tweeted out something earlier today too. There was a transgender guy who's pretty popular, Jeffrey Marsh. He wears a lot of makeup. He's probably second in line to Dylan Mulvaney, I would say. He did a video talking specifically to children today, telling them that, you need to be extra nice to trans people. If you see someone like me, you need to be extra nice. You need to be very, very kind. And I use that as an example as to what oh my gosh, it's totally grooming. First of all, he changed his tone of voice from talking to adults. I'm talking to you now, kids. Complete change of tone in voice. So it's absolutely grooming. And then second of all, the ask is extra. He's asking for something extra. Okay. Now, this was a good example of my whole position on the trans topic. They've never been about equality, Josh. It is about more. They want more. They don't want the same. They don't want the same as what everybody else has. They're not looking for equality. They're looking for special accommodation. No woman or man is accepted in society wearing that kind of clown makeup, wearing the over-the-top clothing. No man or woman is it accepted for them to be sexualized in the street. No, but that's not acceptable in our society. So they are not asking for equality. They're asking for special accommodation. That's different. That's different.
But also government regulated and imposed special.
Yes. Regulate. Exactly. We're going to force mandate this. Right? We're going to force you. And so that, I always say this, and maybe I get annoying saying it because I say it on my show all the time, but I just love to study language because a lot of our vocabulary is subconscious, right? We pull from a lot of, knowledge that schema, like the knowledge we just kind of hold in our subconscious. And so it comes out in our conscious expression and we don't even really know it. So if you listen to enough of these videos with these transgenders, you can easily identify that they aren't asking for equality. They are asking for more. They continue to. Another video I watched was a younger girl, and she's desperate. It's quite sad. She's desperate, clearly mentally ill, and she's begging you to recognize. I need people to recognize that I am special, she says. I need people to recognize I'm part fox and my pronouns are zer, and all this explanation she has for this very, very, just wild explanation and identification of herself. But it's about being special. She needs you to see her this way. Right. And this is over and over again in these videos. And so it just, they tell you exactly who they are. And the problem is society doesn't have space for special. When, we have space for special needs people that, have circumstances that were beyond their control, right? But in reality, we have to stay tethered to some core principles as a society in order to function. And one of those priorities is identifying gender. Because if you walk into a hospital room and I have to not assume your gender, I'm not sure if you have a penis or a vagina, we could have some serious malpractice going on, right? So we have to have some reality tethering us to biology, tethering us to some common principles that we can all agree on. So we can't just tailor our viewpoint based on an individual, like feeling like they're a fox or feeling like they're this, outside of societal norm thing, because we will lose. We will be floating in error. We won't know who we are. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some very concrete rules to the world. There's some things that just aren't negotiable. And if we need to decide, I guess we need to, I can't even believe it, but I guess we need to decide as a nation, what are we going to call real? What's going to be real here? Are we gonna acknowledge that we have differences between male and female? Is this going to be how because we need a standard operating procedure here, Josh. We can't just be willy-nilly with all of this stuff. People are going to end up dead.
Well, see, here's the problem. Firstly, I don't give a flying fuck if someone out there identifies a certain way, if they believe themselves to be a woman, if they cut their penis off, if they cut their breast. That is completely up to them and how they live their life, right? It doesn't affect me until it affects me. And that's the American way. It doesn't affect me until it affects me. When we have governments, state, local, and federal, making laws pertinent to, hey, these are protected groups. You can't say things about them. You can't hurt their feelings. You can't speak your mind. You can't express your constitutional God-given rights against these people. And then when these same people impose their opinions, beliefs onto our children and have the ability to mold our children into a sexual discourse.
Right.
This is where I start to have big problems with this.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to dress up as a woman or be a woman or dress up as a man and be a man, whatever, and you want to be a teacher and you go into that school and you just teach the topic, the subject, and you don't influence the kid in any way sexually or at all, and you don't even talk about LGBT, you don't talk about any of that stuff, more power to you. But if you want to do that and then you want to impose your ideology onto somebody else's children, if you want to impose your ideology, if you want everybody to have to align to your ideology, we got issues. We got some big problems here.
Yeah, I think I'm to a breaking point, actually, Josh. You know, I used to be of the mindset like, do what you want. I don't care. You know, everyone's free. And I do. I still, to a certain degree, believe in that as well. But now they are starting to shape culture, right? Now they're starting to shape culture. And knowing what I know, studying narcissistic behavior and understanding it, I can see clearly this is a narcissistic disorder. Wanting this special category for yourself is a narcissistic disorder. And so I don't think it's okay for everyone to just do that. If you're going to go live up in the mountains, go do it. But if you're going to, you know, start a influential organization to try to sway children into it, then I have a problem with that.
Right.
You know, it's to the point now where I can see this movement for what it is, which is satanic. I truly believe it's
100%.
satanic. Yep.
Well,
they are
a very general term to give it, but
they're worshiping their deity.
One of my good friends in Colorado's a cousin, is a trans woman. All right. Trump supporter, conservatives if ever. They made the transition when they were like 18, around that time frame. But here's the thing, is they don't fly any flags. They don't go out and impress their ideology. To public view, they are a woman. They are a lady. And only to the people that are very close to them, I think her boyfriend and stuff like that, do they know the truth.
Right.
Right. And look, if you want to be that person, more power to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Because at that point, maybe it's a societal norm because nobody can even tell. Right. She's not asking for special accommodation everywhere she goes and making it a spectacle. Right. If you are wearing clown makeup like they did at the Olympic ceremony, this is a caricature of a woman. This is not a display of a woman. This is this is insulting. This is insulting that you are portraying a woman in this way. It is belittling. You're making us look stupid, like you think we're stupid. That's why a lot of people feel that it's misogynistic to display women like this, because it is. You've got these giant cartoon boobs, right? And this is and you're dancing around and you're just like, you know, like it is insulting. I find it insulting.
Well, let's lead the charge. We need women like you to stand up, to create millions upon millions of women coming in together to stand up against this and start speaking out. You know, that's the one thing, is we haven't seen really anybody in the sense of leadership stand up at that level and lead other women, because once one woman comes forward and starts speaking out about it and creates a place where everybody can convene and talk about it and start planning things, they will flock in there.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about it. I've been talking about it on my show and I've been posting about it on Twitter, and it's time, because now it's like, if we don't, you can't sit around and wait for somebody else to take the heat, because now we're facing the fact that there may be no women left in the Olympics in years to come. Like, you got to get out there and fight for your daughters. I've got an 18-year-old daughter. There's no way.
Why don't we just give them their own category, the trans category?
Yeah. I mean, it's not acceptable for a woman to box a man. And that was clearly proven today when the woman took one shot to the face and was done. She took one shot to the face.
So the boxer woman was born with the disease where she has all the female characteristics but had XY chromosomes. And she was actually born like that and raised a girl. So that did come out. And so she does have that. I forgot what it's called, the disease where they basically hermaphrodite. She was born a hermaphrodite with predominant XY chromosomes, but has the female characteristics. But definitely not, I don't think she should have been competing in that. She definitely has the body of a man.
Right. Well, she failed the gender test is what I read. She failed the gender test. So that was, I mean, it's not, if it was a one-off in a boxing match, it would be one thing, but there's other categories where this is happening.
They're all over. Yeah.
They're all over, and they're happening even at the community level. And you're seeing men who were very mediocre athletes competing in the men's division, hopping over and, kicking ass in the women's division. It's ridiculous. And if people think it's not going to infiltrate women's health, they're sorely mistaken, because it already has. They have a study I covered last week about women's pain. Okay. And there were men in the study. There were trans men in the study. What are we going to learn about women's pain with men in the study? You tell me. What are we going to learn about that? I'll tell you that, dysmenorrhea around menstrual cycles is very real. I suffered from it myself for a long time, and it was extremely painful. And there were no answers for me. None. My choices were get my uterus out or take opiates. Those were my choices. And I knew neither one of those choices was a good choice for me. So I was on my own to go solve that problem. And there was no research to go to tell me what to do. I had to forge my own path, right? I had to forge my own path. Do you think this men being involved in women's pain is going to help that? This is so much bigger than just women's sports.
Oh,
we are going to be in this weird
now the
world.
institution of science is being,
Yes. I mean, we're going to lose so much. We are going to lose so much. I mean, we already have to deal with the pharmaceutical model that's corrupt, and that science is funded and products are funded, and, pharmaceutical studies are all, that's what they are. They're pharmaceutical studies now. They're not actual science. They're pharmaceutical studies in order to prove their hypothesis that their pills work. That's all they are. And now not only are we dealing with that, we're dealing with weird corrupt science that isn't even based in biology. So we have to stand up. We have to. We have to come together.
Well, it's the time that we have to stand up to stop the social cultural infiltration that is occurring, and then we have to change the political environment and landscape, and then we have to rebuild our country. And it's getting to that point, and we're at that juncture right now within history where it's prime for that to happen. And if we don't do it, somebody else will. And the thing is you might not like the way that they rebuild it, because they're in the midst of that right now, and it's called the Great Reset, people.
Yes.
Everybody out there, I just put Tammy's link in the chats, redpills.tv/NIP, redpills.tv/NIP. You can visit her on over there. She does coaching, consulting. She's got her own podcast, radio shows, and she got tons of great products out there. Please go on and visit her. I believe that's also her Substack. So subscribe over there to her Substack. Tammy, great as always. I'm going to have you on a Friday night. We need to get Jason on Friday night.
Oh, yeah. We can do it together. That'd be fun.
You and Jason, I'm going to text him right after this. I'm going to say, hey, in a guest for Friday night. Me, you, and Tammy. Let's do a show together. Because so if anybody doesn't know, Jason is Tammy's husband. He's always trolling on the Rumble chat. But he is a walking encyclopedia of the history of a lot of these cults. In the sense of what happened in the 1960s, Laurel Canyon, and kind of what happened from there. So I'm going to see if he wants to. But Tammy, thank you for joining me tonight. Guys, 1 second, Tammy. But guys, we are going to the After Dark Q&A, the Thursday Q&A that is on socialredpill.com, socialredpill.com. You can subscribe over there, get into that. You go to the groups. Underneath the group setting, you got the Thursday Q&A. You can find that in there. We'll be over there in I'll be 15 minutes. I got to run to the store real quick. But then I'll be over there, but everybody else will be opening that up here in just a few minutes. Much love, respect. We'll be on Conversations on the Fringe tomorrow night. we'll let you know if we're going to have guests. It probably might be Tammy. I don't know. We'll see if they can make it. They probably got plans, though, so I don't want to bother them. But much love, respect. God bless everybody. Take care. Have a great night, Tammy. Again, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much for having me on. And thank you, Daily Dosers.
Take care, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Spoon. That's impossible. Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.